So, Zack Snyder is back already, huh? Okay. I'm not 100% sure what happened here, but I can hazard a guess. I think Zack Snyder was riding really high after the Snyder Cut hype last year. Not that the Snyder Cut was even that good, it wasn't, but the hype surrounding it was so intense that Snyder, I suspect, got a little drunk on it and let the thought creep into his head of, wow, let's see what else I can get away with. So fast forward a little bit and we have Army of the Dead, a film directed by Zack Snyder, produced by Zack Snyder, co-written by Zack Snyder, from a story by Zack Snyder. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the last movie Snyder had this many credits on was Sucker Punch. If you think that's a good sign, I can't help you. I think what bugs me the most about this movie is what it could have been. You do have the makings of something cool here. It has an interesting premise. Las Vegas is quarantined due to a zombie outbreak. A team of mercs go in to raid a safe at a casino while fending off hordes of the undead. So it's basically Ocean's 11 with zombies. That's a fun idea. And when you add a fairly likable cast, some zombie concepts that were kind of fresh and new, at least to my knowledge, you throw in the guy who directed Dawn of the Dead, and how can you go wrong? Well, unfortunately, you go wrong by letting Zack Snyder write the damn thing. Just about every plot point in this movie relies on the characters doing something unbelievably stupid. The inciting incident in the opening scene is pretty dumb by itself, and then it just gets worse from there. Because once the team goes into Las Vegas, you could almost make a game out of trying to imagine the stupidest thing these characters could possibly do, the worst decision they could possibly make in any situation that would make it more difficult for them to get out of that situation alive, and 9 times out of 10, they'll do that thing. You've got characters who have their own agendas and are trying to sabotage the mission, which makes no sense at all because there's no reason why both missions can't succeed, and by sabotaging one, you're sabotaging the other. You've got other characters giving the team false information for no discernible reason, and you've got the main character's daughter tagging along so she can rescue her friends who went into the city like idiots, a plot that does nothing but f*** everybody up and feels like it's only there in the first place so Snyder and his co-writers could insert some absolutely baffling political commentary so ham-fisted and so sophomoric and transparent they actually got Sean Spicer to cameo as himself. I mean, for crying out loud, Hollywood! Trump is not the president anymore! He left office months ago! It's okay to move on from this stuff now! The whole thing feels like such a waste of a promising cast and premise, because with one or two exceptions, I did like these people. A lot of the characters come off like badasses, they do have personality and charisma, and most of them make enough of an impression that I cared when they started getting bumped off. But outside of Dave Bautista's character, no one really gets developed all that much, and it's just made all the more irksome seeing characters I genuinely wanted to get on board with doing frustratingly stupid things that any idiot could tell them are just gonna make it harder for them to stay alive. And that's not even entirely their fault. Sometimes it's due to the situations they find themselves in because the movie can't even stick to its own logic half the time. Sometimes a character gets bitten by a zombie and they'll turn within 30 seconds, and other times it'll take minutes or even hours. Sometimes zombies want to eat human flesh, and other times they're more interested in zombie flesh. In some scenes the zombies will go straight for the kill, and in others they'll really take their time and just throw a character around for a while for no other reason than because the movie needs a fight scene to happen. There's no consistency to it. It's just whatever needs to go down to move the story from A to B, even if it contradicts something that happened earlier. And what makes it even more annoying is that there are some interesting concepts here. I was intrigued by some of the ideas they brought to the table with the zombies, because they're not just mindless monsters, they have some form of intelligence. And they've even created a kind of twisted, up society for themselves, where there's like a social hierarchy with your typical zombies on the bottom, the more powerful alphas, and then one big one at the top controlling everything. But the original zombie that caused the outbreak is gone by the time they get into the city, and he seems to have been usurped by one of the alphas. So there might be political infighting in this society too, and they can have relationships with each other and even get pregnant. Yeah, pregnant zombies, which is presented as a really special, unique thing, and then the movie does absolutely nothing with it. the most potentially interesting concept the movie had to offer, and they just throw it away without even exploring the idea. Why wasn't the movie about that? Why are we wasting time on the human characters keeping secrets and screwing each other over like dumbasses when they desperately need to work together just to survive, when you've got this really fascinating idea here, which by all rights the movie should have been about, that gets treated like a throwaway? The problem is you've got two different films here. You've got all the fun zombie world building that could have and really should have been the focus of its own movie, and then you've got the less interesting heist plot full of characters that you might want to root for and probably could root for in a different situation, but often can't root for because they keep shooting themselves in the foot, and the whole thing is wrapped up in a story that keeps breaking its own rules because that was the only way Snyder and his co-writers could think of to keep the story moving. And ironically, at the very end, they sequel bait us with the absolute stupidest thing in the movie. I won't spoil it, but it's very reminiscent of Indiana Jones surviving a nuclear explosion by hiding in a fridge in terms of how in the unholy is that character still alive. If that was the best idea they had to set up a sequel, then I'll pass, thanks. Army of the Dead does have some good qualities. The premise itself is fun, there are some good action scenes where Snyder was surprisingly restrained and kept the slow-mo to a bare minimum for a change, and a lot of the ideas it has with the zombies I thought were pretty intriguing. But the whole thing is dragged down by one idiotic plot point after another, and the most interesting stuff in the movie, for some reason, is the last thing the filmmakers wanted to focus on. I'm not trying to be a Zack Snyder hater, I'm really not. I like 300, mostly like Man of Steel, I love Watchmen, so I do enjoy some of his work. But the guy needs oversight. If you give him too much creative control, you wind up with Sucker Punch, or, unfortunately, stuff like this. He's a brilliant cinematographer, he can be a great director under the right circumstances. Even if he wants a story by credit, that's not necessarily a bad thing. The first Wonder Woman, for example. But he needs to stop trying to be a screenwriter. In the future, Zack, stop overreaching so much. Just stick to what you're good at, and the results will probably be better than this was. And also, not to be that guy or anything, but there was no actual Army of the Dead in Army of the Dead. Seems like a weird thing to forget about if you ask me. Thanks for watching, everybody. Let me know what you thought about Army of the Dead down below, and while you're here, ding that bell icon for notifications, follow me on social media so you'll always know when I upload new stuff, check out my new live streaming channel where all my live streams will be uploaded from now on, the links are down there, and don't forget to thumbs up the video, share, subscribe, and make sure you're still subscribed, because what really deserves to be savagely torn apart in the middle of a zombie apocalypse is the YouTube algorithm. That's all for now, but I'll be back with more soon, so stay tuned for that, do all the YouTube things, and I'll see you next time.